So this is week 2. I just recorded this without the mic on. Hi, welcome to another edition of Virtual School with Mr. Russ. Alright, let's get right in and then we can get right out. Today we're going to talk about Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay, Nature, in particular the 2 paragraphs at the start of Chapter 1, also called Nature, which deal with the stars. To go into solitude, a man needs to retire as much from his chamber as from society. I am not solitary whilst I read and write, though nobody is with me. But if a man would be alone, let him look at the stars. The rays that come from those heavenly worlds will separate between him and what he touches. One might think the atmosphere was made transparent with this design, to give man in the heavenly bodies the perpetual presence of the sublime. Seen in the streets of cities, how great they are! If the stars should appear one night in 1,000 years, how would men believe and adore and preserve for many generations the remembrance of the city of God which had been shown? But every night come out these envoys of beauty and light the universe with their admonishing smile. The stars awaken a certain reverence, because though always present, they are inaccessible. But all natural objects make a kindred impression when the mind is open to their influence. Nature never wears a mean appearance, neither does the wisest man extort her secret and lose his curiosity by finding out her perfection. Nature never became a toy to a wise spirit. The flowers, the animals, the mountains reflected the wisdom of the best hour as much as they had delighted the simplicity of his childhood. My man Emerson's out here in 1836 talking about space. 1836. No telescopes, no internet, none of that stuff. But he's talking about the same kind of thing that we deal with every single day. You go play a winter sport, you know that you never see the sun in the winter. You come to school, it's dark. You go to school, your soul feels dark. You leave school, you go to practice, you come home, sun's down. Never see it. You're in darkness the entire time. You're tired. You're exhausted. You get out of the car after a really long day and you keep your head down. Emerson asks us to look up. He says that there's this great wild infinity way out there, out in space, that we don't even pay attention to. He says that the perpetual presence of the sublime is seen in the stars. And we choose to ignore it. How many times do we come out of our car focused on this, on our phone, on this 4.5-inch screen, as opposed to the great wonder of infinity that's up there? Yeah, Emerson's night sky was a little bit different than ours. He had no light pollution from not as much light pollution from New York City. He was in Massachusetts. He didn't have as much light pollution from Boston. He didn't have enough from anywhere. We're in a particularly bad place to look at the stars. But if you've ever been out on a cruise ship, don't go on one now, or if you've ever been out in Colorado and looked up at the night sky, it's a totally different game. I'm going to tell you about the time I cried. My wife and I were on our honeymoon. We were in Australia, and we were out on a boat taking a look. We were out to have dinner. It was a dinner cruise, and we gotten our meal. This was also the night I ate kangaroo. It was delicious, highly recommended. And we had a couple minutes before everybody was going to get up. So I said, I want to go out on deck. I want to try and find the only southern constellation I know. I don't know if you guys know, but the Earth being a sphere, we look off in different directions, so we see different constellations depending on where we are. So I only know one southern constellation, and that's the Southern Cross. It's the one that's on the flag of Australia. So I really wanted to try and find it. So I went up on deck, and I took a look, and sure enough, as soon as I walked out, it was right there. It was pretty easy to spot. It's like the Big Dipper. But then I turned around to return down into the cabin to meet my wife for dessert, and I was totally unprepared for what I saw when I turned around. There, across the entire night sky, was the belt of the Milky Way galaxy, something I had never seen before and something I had always wanted to see, and I was completely unprepared for it. And in that moment, this sounds cheesy, but remember my job, the only thing I could think about was, this is the moment that Emerson talked about in Nature. This is that reverence of the beauty of nature. Imagine This is something I had always wanted to see my entire life, something I never thought that I'd really be able to without a lot of hard work to put into it, and I was absolutely surprised by seeing it. I wasn't expecting it. It was just there. And I knew what it was like to see something that Emerson says, imagine if the stars only came out once in 1,000 years. Imagine if that was tonight. If the stars only came out tonight, once in 1,000 years, imagine what the world would be like today. Everything would stop. Everyone would sleep all day to be ready for the night when the stars came out. It's the kind of thing that you would tell your children about, that you would tell your grandchildren about, that would be passed down from generation to generation about the night Grandpa saw the stars. And then it would pass into legend until it happened again. Emerson says that we have this great cosmic influence and cosmic beauty all around us, and we willingly ignore it. And he wants us to take notice of that. Let's talk about space. Space is stupid big. You can't even fathom how big space is. Space is so big that we do not talk about distances in terms of miles or things that we're able to manifest in our heads. Like, how many football fields do you live away from school? How many football fields do you live away from the moon? Like, we don't talk about space like that. We talk about space in units called astronomical units, or that's the shortest one that we can deal with right now, which is the distance between the Earth and the sun. And even that is nothing compared to how big space is. So when we move out of our area, we have to talk about space in terms of time. We talk about space in terms of light years. And light years are how far light travels in a single year. Pretty self-explanatory. But the distance that light is capable of moving is another one of those big numbers that we have a lot of trouble dealing with. So it takes about 9 minutes for things that take place for light born on the sun to reach Earth. So that means that if the sun were to blow up right now, we would not know about it for 9 minutes. That's a huge amount of space to travel in 9 minutes. And that is tiny compared to how big space is. So how does this play in with the other video that I had attached to this about the Hubble Space Telescope, which I'll try and link up in the corner if I can figure out how to do it. I want you to play with these two ideas together. When the Hubble looks into nothingness and it finds infinity, that's wild. Emerson has a line about this in another one, in Self-Reliance. I just dropped my pen, but we're going to ignore that. In Self-Reliance, Emerson says, "In every work of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. They come back to us with a certain alienated majesty." What is the universe except a work of genius? Don't forget that Emerson was a trained minister, so he had this idea of the divine that he was always playing around with. But he also had this idea of the oversoul that he was also playing around with. And these two ideas might not work together, but they do kind of, because he makes it. Remember, he's creating this as he goes, so he's taking all of these pieces and trying to put them together into some kind of cohesive whole. Another line that says, "Nature never becomes a toy to a wise spirit. Come with me on a time travel journey to December the 24th, and you're 7 years old. It's Christmas Eve, and you're so excited because you know that Santa Claus is coming tonight, and he's going to be bringing you the thing that you've wanted since maybe early November. When I was a kid, we got catalogs, so we would get the catalog and we would circle all the stuff that we wanted, and we would leave it open at a really convenient place for our parents to find it, like right in front of the toilet. But you know the thing that you want. For me, it was a G.I. Joe action playset that was like really big, and it had like a helicopter and all these decals, and it made noises, and it had wheels, and it had like 2 exclusive action figures, and it had a cannon that you could detach and chase your sister around the house with and shoot missiles at her. It was awesome. And so from about Thanksgiving on, I was on my absolute best behavior to get it, just like you were. You like took out the garbage, which was really impressive because you're 7. You made your parents breakfast in bed, which was really impressive because you're 7. You didn't hit your sister that much. You were really nice to her. Maybe you posed nicely for your Christmas card, and you just did everything because you wanted to get that G.I. Joe action playset with the 2 exclusive action figures. That was really big. Came with a helicopter, had a little gun that you could chase your sister around the house with. Oh man, did you want that thing? And every day that Christmas started getting closer and closer, you would do little Christmas things like take out the Christmas decorations. This is the creepiest thing that I've ever seen. And you would leave them around the house, and then you would put up the lights. And if you had blinky lights, they would be outside your window, and they would be blinking, saying, "It's Christmas, it's Christmas, it's Christmas, it's Christmas." And now that it's December the 24th, and you hopped in bed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to get ready for Santa, there is nothing stopping you from sitting under the sheets like this, just waiting for your homie to show up on the roof with his prancing little reindeer. And you call out your mom, like, "Mom, I think I hear reindeer," but it's really just your parents in the attic. Say, "Oh, go to sleep, honey. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You can't come out. Don't come down." And then you finally somehow manage to fall asleep with the blinky Christmas lights. And then you wake up at 4:15 in the morning, and you run into your parents' room and you say, "Okay, let's go." And for me, we were upstairs and we had the tree downstairs. So you would go and wake them up and shake them awake, and they'd probably only just gotten to bed maybe a half hour ago from putting all the and then so they would go downstairs first, and my sister and I would have to stay at the top of the stairs and wait. And when they get all set up, they go down there. They're like, "Oh, Santa came." You know what I'm talking about? And then when they finally say, "You can come downstairs," you basically jump from the second floor to the first floor, and you just land Captain America style. And there's the Christmas tree, and there are the presents. And there, right underneath the tree, is the G.I. Joe action playset with the 2 exclusive action figures, the helicopter, the little gun that you could chase your sister around the house with, all the noises and all the stickers and everything, and it was perfect. You played with this thing, and it was the greatest toy, and it was the greatest 15 minutes of your entire life, and then suddenly, you're done. It doesn't matter anymore. This thing that had dominated your very existence for a month, 2 months, nothing. Nature never becomes a toy to a wise spirit. Have a good night.